There's been a good deal of media coverage of the 21-year-old kid working in Boston his name is Jack Teixeira. He is the guy accused of leaking these Pentagon documents, and there's a lot of fury directed against him. Oh, he's a traitor, he needs to be punished, and so on. And in the way the law goes, this is a guy who did break the law. You're not supposed to release these documents. I'm sure that he will face accountability, and he probably also knew that. The documents, weirdly enough, have been circulating on these kind of gaming channels for a while now. It's kind of amazing the Pentagon didn't figure this out. But the focus, as I say, has been on the leaker. But what's interesting, since no one denies the documents are authentic, and a large number of these documents are now out there for people to see, it's the content of the documents that's really important. So I'm grateful to the leaker, if only for that. We can actually learn new things that not only were not known before, but were being kept from us. So let's look at some of the key revelations of the leaks. Here's revelation number one. The Ukraine war is not going all that well. It's not going all that well for Russia, to be sure, heavy casualties. But it's not going that well for Ukraine either. Heavy and certainly proportionately much heavier casualties. So let's look at this. The Russians have suffered apparently 189,500 casualties, somewhere between that and 223,000. Ukraine has suffered between 124 and 131,000, but Ukraine is a tiny country compared to Russia. So the effect on Ukraine is far more cataclysmic. Number two, connected with this, the leaks show that these new offensives, remember, we're always assured the next offensive will throw the Russians back. We're doing really well in the war. Bad news about the Ukraine war is not typically reported in the Western media. So we're getting cheerleading from the Biden administration and cheerleading from the media. But these top secret documents show that Ukraine is hurting badly, that Ukraine is not all that viable militarily, and that even if Ukraine does get another heavily Western-backed initiative with Western weapons, Western training, they can be expected to produce, quote, only modest gains. So the idea that we're beating Russia and Russia's going to run with its tail between its heels, this objective is as distant as ever, and I would argue it is not something that is going to be achieved. Let's remember that going back to the Vietnam War, continuing with the Gulf War, we have gotten a lot of lies out of the U.S. government. Remember all the LBJ assurances to the American people that I'm not going to be sending American boys. Yes, he did. The war is going really well. That was General Westmoreland. No, it wasn't. And then on to the Gulf War, weapons of mass destruction. So the government is, and governments are known to put out propaganda, but it's also important in a democratic society for people to have an idea about how this war that they are funding and they're being asked to back politically is going. We need some realistic assessment of what is happening on the ground. And as it turns out, the leaks provide a better window into a not going so well war than all the bloviation of the Biden administration. A second revelation from the leaks, very interesting. China has agreed to secretly arm Russia, to disguise the weapons it's sending to Russia as being, they're providing civilian supplies and materiel, but in fact it's military supplies. Evidently the Chinese view, now China's been saying publicly, we're not providing arms to either side, but it turns out this is actually not true. We know from the leaked documents that U.S. intelligence has figured out that the Chinese believe that, hey, listen, if the West is going to supply Ukraine, we're going to be supplying Russia. We're just going to do it kind of under the table. And so that's a very interesting development. A third revelation, this one is a little bit startling, that Egypt, which is supposed to be a U.S. ally, one of, in fact, the U.S.'s closest military Middle East partners, and by the way, a partner that we give a ton, billions and billions of dollars in military aid to. Well, it turns out that Egypt is interested in supplying Russia with armaments. I can't tell from the documents if the arms have been supplied or if they're going to be supplied, but evidently Egyptian President El-Sisi had ordered subordinates to, quote, produce up to 40,000 rockets to be secretly shipped to Russia. So think about this. Egypt is ostensibly a U.S. ally, but again, behind the scenes, just like China, they're supplying weapons to Russia. All of these are indications that the world, or large parts of it, are not on board with this, oh, it's the free world against the authoritarians. Egypt is a democratic society. I mean, it's a flawed democratic society. It's got sort of a quasi-military rule with the sort of apparatus of democracy, but that's true of so many other countries. So when we come back, more revelations from the Pentagon leaked documents.